So now we're going to look at the first track of the project, which is to create a vacuum tube synth track. And what that is it's a software instrument track, unlike the other ones which are going to be audio tracks. But there's so many sequencers and so many areas in music where you can end up using synthesizers, and people usually don't know how to do things with them. So we're going to look at some basics of how to do something with one of these synths. This one's an additive and subtractive synth, and we're going to learn how to do some sound creation with it without using a preset. Also going to automate a low pass filter to create one of these wobble bass type of effects. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. We're going to go into Pro Tools. I'm going to create a new track, stereo, and it's going to be instrument track, and ticks here. And if this isn't already showing here, inserts, you're going to need to go to View, and Edit Window shows inserts. Alternatively, you can go to Window and Mix, and you can add stuff in this way. So I can click Insert this way. And insert multi-channel plugin, instrument, and vacuum. So I don't have any output here because I changed my audio card, so I'm going to make sure to have that selected. Okay, cool. Now if I hit record, I should hear sound. Cool, I do. It's a very bright sound. I'm going to file and save this thing because I just did some work adding in a new track. And I'm going to save all the time so I don't lose anything. Cool. Double clicked and named it Vacuum. Okay, so this is, again, as I said, a synthesizer, and it has different sections. Synthesizers generate their sound by using some type of sound generation mechanism. So we're going to look at how we generate sound in this synthesizer. And what we do is we go to this beginning left side of it, and it has these things called VTOs, or voltage triggered oscillators. You may see VCO for voltage control oscillators in other synths. There's various names that mean the same thing. Ultimately, electrical variations are used to create different audio patterns, and they have different types of sounds associated with them. This also has two of them, this top one and the bottom one. And the volume, it says here mixer, the volume on each of them is both turned up. I only want to hear the first one. I don't want to hear both of them, so I'm going to take this volume of the second one and turn it all the way down. And so then I should just hear this first one if I hit a key. It's on this thing called PW50, pulse wave 50. Okay, I'm going to go to saw to hear what that sounds like. Then triangle to hear what that sounds like. A lot less bright sound there, right? I can also change how low or high it starts. Okay, and there's finer control too. Okay, so I have that basic sound. I'm going to put it on this really bright one because I'm going to do stuff to it that affects the brightness. Over here it says VT HPF, voltage triggered high pass filter. And filters are things that just take our original sound and sculpt it by cutting stuff out. I actually don't want to mess with this one. I'm going to use this one, VT LPF, or low pass filter. And this will let, as its name might suggest, it'll let low stuff pass on through, but it'll cut off the high stuff. So it's really bright and high right now. But if we move this thing here, it cuts out the high stuff. So it has a big impact on things. This reso here is resonance. And it just affects how much of this cutoff point that we actually hear. So if I turn this way up, then you hear the point excited a lot where I cut it off. Let's do it even more. You hear those harmonics. Now I turn it way down. And you hear it being cut off, but you don't hear that point that it is cut off at, that laser point type of sound. Okay, some other things here which we're not going to go into. Here I can also try to make it sound more analog, like the old school ones did, by allowing some problems to happen with it. Dustiness, and here literally when it kind of goes out of tune and doesn't function properly, you can add some of that back in there. This here is VTA, or voltage triggered amplifier, and it just basically means volume. It's the main volume of everything over time. So I'm going to keep that as it is. So now we have over here on the left the stuff that creates the sound. This lets us mix together two sound creators. We're just going to have the volume up on one of them, this top one. This section right next to it allows us to filter stuff out. And over here, this is a main volume. So what do we have below? Below, it says VTO2. Well, we already know about that. It's the second one of these voltage-triggered sound generators or oscillators. Some special effects stuff that we're not going to really deal with at the moment. So now let's take a look at what that means. So the first thing is there's something called source, and that's the thing that's going to be messing with our sound. It has a bunch of kind of crazy looking things here. LFO, LFO, MW, and AT here, AT. We're actually going to ignore everything except for LFO, which means low frequency oscillator. And that's something that goes back and forth, just like the things that create sound for us, but it goes back and forth really slowly. And the back and forth motion is used to change stuff. And that'll make sense in a second. Depth is how much does this thing move back and forth in the first place? How much does it actually affect stuff and move? Then over here is, well, what are we going to use it to mess with? So what I want to do is I want to show a real obvious thing. I'm going to say change the pitch. Change the pitch of what we have up and down. So normally it sounds like this. Here's a note. Now I'm going to change the depth on here. And now this low frequency oscillator is going to vibrate at a little over 3 times a second. It's going to go back and forth and change the pitch of what we have. Kind of sounds like a vibrato almost here. I can change the rate here. How much it does it by. Okay, move that back down. Now I'm going to go over here and change it to low pass filter. It's going to change the filter knob up and down for us. Again, I can change how deep that is. Cool. I'm actually going to get rid of it at the moment. I'm going to hold down Option or Alt and click there, or you can just drag it back. So now it's just going to have this information here, just not controlling anything. It's not actually putting any depth on it. Back to normal. So one more thing on this whole thing is I can make it automatically play chords and things for me with this thing called ARP, or arpeggiator. Turn it on, ARP on, and when I hit a couple notes of the keyboard at the same time, it jumps back and forth through them at whatever rate I chose. So here, I have it on 16th notes. If I go up here, it's going to be faster. So you can get some pretty cool sounds that way. And it's going only up right now, but I could make it go up and down or just down or random here. Up and and down can be a nice one. You can also use pitch bend and modulation to do things. Right now it's selected on vibrato, but I could put it on wah. Or tremolo. I can also just pitch bend too with the pitch bend slider. So I get some combinations like that I like. Probably put an effect on it or something too. There's a few more settings here. If I click there, I can actually have it move between notes when I play one after another. It's kind of cool. Pitch bend tells me how much it bends when I actually do use a pitch bend. And this is, does it keep on re-triggering the amplitude changes every time I hit a key. The stuff from envelope 2 that we used earlier. I could go onto here and put a reverb on, make it sound kind of cooler, give it more space. I'm going to use one of these air ones, which is made by Digidesign, so you should have that too. But, you know, whatever one you want to use is fine. That sounds awful. Let's see if there's a preset that sounds okay. There's a lot of out there ones. So maybe this is not what we actually want. Let's try a different one. Reverb. Just basic reverb. Okay. It's got some interesting changes still. It's changing pitch over time, I can hear. Kind of interesting. Whatever. We'll work with that for the moment. Now if I hit the chord down. It's got some cool sounds going on there. If I take this cut off and put it back to normal, it's going to be more bright now. Maybe a little bit less of this reverb on there. Take off this high cut filter. We want a little bit less wet. It's gonna be less mixed in there.